Me, lost that job. I should have lost that marriage. I should have lost that friendship. I should have lost my good name and my reputation. But there is a God that was sitting up high and looking down low. And I got to tell him, thank you for his grace. And because God has been ever good to me, and what God has done for me is he has saved me from my sin. And he saved me so completely that there's nothing I can do and the devil in hell can do. And I am in love with him. I don't serve him because I'm scared he's going to beat me and what I deserve. And I came to tell God, thank you. 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 And I came to tell God, thank you for being good to me. I came to serve him. And so when I serve God with my money, I don't serve God grudgingly. Yeah. I don't serve God in such a way that I say I'm going to break God's look on my face. And that activity in my body, that body language is saying, you just be lucky I'm here. And how I may act. Because you don't understand what a rough week I had. You don't have any idea. It's been on me all week. Y'all just need to be happy I'm here this morning. Can I help you out? The one that need to be happy you still here this morning ain't us. The one that needs to be happy you still here is you. And you ought to develop that attitude. I know you get tired of hearing me quoted, but you ought to develop that attitude, man. This is the day. He says, now you need to pick it up and move it off you. On you, you got to pull that off and throw it down. He begins to talk about the effect that their gods had on them, that it was the gods in Mesopotamia that they were worshiping when Terah was leading his children, Abraham, to worship on these idol gods. That they began to invent in their own minds, see him as some limited, frail God who is diminished and diminishing in his power. That when they were in Egypt, they worshiped a god named Apis, and Apis was a god who was black and white and looked like a bull. He was one of the principal persons that brought worship to his mother, who was an Egyptian goddess in their religious culture. And what he did supposedly to bring about some worship of her was he would die and come back to life. And when they would see him come back to life, and they would cry. And then they began to worship him for that pregnant every time, the cows, every time, the camels, every time the goats, the sheep, every time the olive branch reproduced. Apis did this for us. Because when you worship the wrong God, not only do you imagine a God in your own mind that's too weak to handle, well, worship a God named the idea of sexual immorality. And what they would do, the women in in Moab who were worshiping Baal Peor would come out and they would solicit the participation of the Israelite men. Come help us worship our God. Israelite men would say, no, we can't come help you worship your God. And then they would say, well, you come help us worship our God. There is some sexual immorality involved. And the man of Israel say, what time? Where we going to meet at? Because when you worship the wrong God, you take the sacred things of God out of the context for which God created them. You see, boy, I tell you what, you take what God calls sacred, and that was something that he created and instituted himself, sexual intimacy between a man and a woman, and we take something that is sacred that God has used to have intimacy, to have a connection between a husband and a wife intimately and emotionally, but also so they could reproduce and procreate children. That's why God gave the gift of intimacy. Not be something for us to pay to watch other people do. Check the mic, man. That's not what he gave it out of the design that God gave it. Husband, wife, male, female no longer matters. When you take it out of God's design. A motor company or General Motors, or that God is like Chrysler. That somehow or another, as the culture, society changes, that which God produces has to change with society. That what he did, that might have been good back then. Our relationship with God has nothing to do with us telling God what we want and how we want him to change what he says so it can fit who we are. Our relationship with God is based upon the fact that God, you are the same, and it's still true right now. He said to them, that stuff off you. Push it out of your way. Take it off of you and throw it down. That having the wrong focus has put on us, and we have to take it off of us. Boy, that's a pretty rough challenge. Fear God, serve him, and get rid of my compromises towards God. I want to know enough listening today. And while I got you at that place where you had to identify for them his choice. It was none of your business. Amen. You that it was none of your business. Well, I just told you sometimes you got to push some stuff off of you. So I better not tell you what I said in response to him, but I will stand here for a moment and say, Lord, I thank you right now for your grace and for your mercy, that when the wrong thing came out of your mouth, out of my mouth. You see, here's a problem that we have when we start wanting to issue challenges to people and want to tell them that you ought to get your life together and you ought to straighten your life out. The problem is you want to get all off in their business. But when you open the door that you're going to get all off in somebody else's business, you got to understand the door works both ways. If you're going to get all off into their business, you need to prepare yourself that they're going to get all off into your business. And you ought to be willing to just set the record straight and just tell them from the beginning, I just want you to know where I stand on this issue. And here's kind of where Joshua begins to tell them, I have issued this challenge for you to get right with God. But let me just talk to you a little bit about where I am. And then he kind of doubles back for a moment, and he said, you to serve God. Do you have this feeling for you to serve God that it seems evil to you? To serve God, the word evil, the word evil would be better translated. Is it something that just is uncomfortable for you? Serving God, by God. Is it just too hard for you to do it? Is it just too hard for you to do it? In your life, and Jesus said to him, set up. I can't do that. I can't do that. That's oh, we sort of like that. 5 nights of vacation Bible school is too much. Sunday school every Sunday is too much. tithe every paycheck, that's too much. Church on time, let God be late waking you up in the morning. I've been good to you. God is, we get too upset with God when God doesn't give us everything we want. And because God doesn't give us everything we want, clothes on your back, you got food in your refrigerator, and you got up this morning clothing in your right mind, the Lord has been real good to you. God has been too good for us to pick and choose how we're going to treat him. You see, you look at that boy in Mark chapter 5, when Jesus has cast all those demons out of him, and he gets ready to leave. Jesus is going back to the other side.